Sara Elbadwi here from Horse Racing Nation, joined by Angela Hermann, Canterbury Park analyst, former race caller at Golden Gate Fields, and all around one of my favorite handicappers to follow on Twitter. I know you don't want me to mention, but loved meeting you this summer at Canterbury and getting your insight for Horse Racing Nation and getting to talk to you pretty much all the time about your horse racing opinions. And I'm going to need them for this Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies because this is a contentious race, and from what I hear, we're both against the favorite.
Yes, I respect Chocolate Gelato and the body of work that she's put together. I am not impressed by the body of work that she has put together to put her in the best possible spot here for the money that she's probably going to take. I think that she's probably going to be one of the most played against favorites of the weekend, but I still think that she'll probably end up around 5-2, 3-1, something like that. And I am not interested whatsoever at that price.
And I think some of it too is going to end up just being a connections play because not everybody is good at handicapping these younger horses. And you have Todd Pletcher, you have Rapoli Stable, you have Irad Ortiz Jr., and she kind of just feels like the default favorite for a lot of people.
Yeah, I know. When you look up and down all of the graded preps, you look for something to sink your teeth into, but I think how many horses were entered in this race kind of underlie the parity that is currently going on in this division. And I think as long as you're going to get a fairly similar filly at 4 or 5 times the price that she's going to be, again, she's why I'm going to take a stand against her. I don't view her as a favorite that I'll even use on a lot of multi-race tickets. I'm just going to toss her completely.
She's a toss for me as well. Other than that maiden win, going the 6 furlongs at Saratoga and that 92 buyer speed figure, she regressed almost 10 points. She regressed 9 points at winning the grade one Frizette. And I don't really think a ton of that field as a whole. And the horse that I did like going into that race kind of just didn't show up in there and broke pretty slowly. It was also an off track. And I get that some people might think that she had every room to regress and run a little bit slower, but she's also a practical joke. And I don't love them routing in general. He's just not as proficient as a sire of dirt routers as he is with his dirt sprinters. So to see that regression for the distance for her, it leaves me a little bit worried for such a short price.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said about that, and you watch New York a little bit closer than I do, so I trust your judgment of a lot of fillies that are gonna come out of those races, but just in watching back and remembering how the day was, and who was favored in those spots, and who showed up and who didn't, and who's gonna use the off track as an excuse, there's a lot of ifs for a short price with her, and I think that with so many lined up against her that are gonna be at viable prices, with maybe not even as many ifs, that it's it's worth digging a little bit deeper into. But if you did have to take one from the graded preps, I guess, whether it be New York or elsewhere, who would it be?
I guess it would probably end up being Wonder Wheel, who I'm a little reluctant to say, but at least this horse is consistent. She is the winner of the Alcibiades, the local grade one prep here. I mean, what has she really done wrong? I guess. I mean, she's won 3 of her starts. She finished second with her only race that she didn't win in that spin away at Saratoga, going the 7 furlongs. And I feel like the Cassie Barn has been very high on this horse and very publicly high on this horse pretty much since her career started as being one of the best ones that he's seen in the barn. She appears to be working well coming into this race too. And that win over the course, I feel like it goes a long way with these inexperienced horses.
No, that's fair. That's fair. There's not a whole bunch to go on. I mean, when you look through replays and these, you can get through it in a decent amount of time. But in not as much looking into the past, but looking into the future, I guess that I went with a horse who doesn't have as much rich foundation to her, I suppose. I'm wondering if you don't like chocolate gelato, uh, and you are a product of a company that loves Ophir statistics, and I know that Todd Pletcher has yet to add a juvenile fillies into his resume, but he's won a lot of other juvenile races at the Breeders' Cup. Do you think that he could do it with his other horse, Atomically? Because that's the way that I leaned in this race when all was said and done.
Isn't that going to be everybody's wise guy horse switching over to the Todd Pletcher barn?
Maybe, I guess.
Are
Yeah,
you being
probably.
a wise guy?
Would you call me a wise guy? I'll take wise guy. I mean, I guess it beats dumb guy, but yeah, I don't think that I'll get 12-1, but I viewed fair odds on her as anywhere above 6-1. I do think that she'll take play, and I know they paid a pretty penny for this filly and taking a big swing, but doing so, I think at the exact right time. Do you think that 6-1 is fair on her, or would you demand more?
I think it's a fair price. I feel like this is a horse that's going to be heavily bet because if you don't like chocolate gelato and maybe you don't love the horses coming out of the Alcibiades, I feel like she's next as far as where you would want to go. And I mean, I guess the figures kind of do stack up, although she has been running solely at Gulfstream so far. She has gone the distance while others have not or have kind of regressed going further. So she does have that to her credit. I feel like this is kind of the horse that a lot of people are going to gravitate towards. I think that she certainly can win, but she wasn't where I wanted to go in this spot. But is there anything else that you really like about her and that led you to her?
Atomically ran pretty quick, actually, in that last leg of the Stallion series down in Florida. She was much quicker than the males that went about the same thing that day. And I think that the progression that she's shown from maybe kind of a too short race to start out with, where she still ran well, but she was a well beaten third, up to handling the distance and really finishing up better than anything that I saw in the Alcibiades, in the Frizette, anything like that. I I don't know. I don't know if she's an awesome feather again. You can't really compare the 2, but coming up from those races and maybe being overlooked might put her in the same sort of category, I guess, price-wise. So, I thought that that was fair enough. I just I know that I'm gonna catch a lot of heck on Thursday night because I tend to lean towards West Coast horses that I'm more familiar with, but nothing from California caught my eye enough to put them on top of her. And I think with all the factors of value, of recency, of wanting the distance, genuinely wanting the distance, which is a concern with her stablemate, a lot of arrows pointed to her.
And speaking of California invaders, we do have one in And Tell Me No Lies, who is the number 3 horse coming in for Peter Miller. She's won her last 3 in a row. Only race where she was not a winner was in her debut. She has gone the distance. But I feel like it would be disrespectful to compare her to Princess Noor, but this is kind of the vibe that this horse is giving me. I just don't think that she's faced as tough competition on the West Coast as she's going to be facing in here. And I don't think that she fully stacks up as far as numbers so far.
I don't know if she has quite that reputation to her, and I think that it's another poor reflection, I guess, on the group of fillies that she's been beating up on out west, that so few of them are going to go to the Breeders' Cup, and she's done her job, she's done it just fine, but I think that she's another one that will get bet more on her connections, that if she was in another barn, she'd be a double-digit horse. Maybe not like 20 to 1 or something like that, but she just hasn't blown anybody away visually. She's done her job well, but she's done it rather slow. And I don't think that moving from Santa Anita out to Keeneland is going to give her the necessary boost to crack the top 3. Maybe I would use her underneath in a super, but I don't think that she provides the value that I would need out of a horse like that that's put in the races that she has. And we kind of seen, I think, the best shot out of her, and I don't think it's fast enough to win this.
I'm with you on the assessment of her. Not one that I'm interested in this spot, especially not under 10 to 1 as well. We do have Chop Chop, who tried the dirt for the first time last time out in the Alcibiades, finishing second. There was kind of a crowding and commotion with Raging Sea and Chetera, who's opting for the turf. Instead, Raging Sea done no favors by the post draw in here, drawing all the way outside in post 14. Are either of these two on your radar? And if so, why or why not?
I thought that Chop Chop would be the wise guy. It might even be one of the favorites. I think that she will be the favorite probably by the time they get to post, depending on what kind of day Brad Cox has had, just because of his success in Kentucky, people knowing the name and people seeing that she can come from off the pace. I think that it'll set up well for her in that respect. But the mile and a 16th distance at Keeneland does not lend itself to a horse that's going to come from as far off as she did last time. But her turf races put her right in the mix early on, too. So I think that of the favorites, Chop Chop would be the only one that I'd be interested in. I'm not into Raging Sea. I thought that she had a pretty ideal trip, and getting any sort of better trip isn't likely from the 14 holes. So, not much for her for me. A little bit of Chop Chop, but not a horse that you can use on top in vertical wagers if you expect anything at all below 20 to 1 to come in second or third, something like that. Um, she's not a horse that appeals to me on top, but I think a horse that you have to use in exactas, tries, supers, things like that because of her ability to pass.
And speaking of ability to pass, it's probably one of my dumber
Yes.
Breeders' Cup opinions, and I admittedly did say so when I talked about this race earlier for another location, as all of us doing all of this Breeders' Cup content are all over the place. And that's American Rockette, who is the number 11 horse in here, who I'll admit I am doing something a little bit stupid by picking her, and she is a little bit of a pet, but
Okay.
first time out in that off the turf race. I mean, she just did something that we don't really see horses do on debut. And there was a lot of talk about how the kickback at Saratoga was significantly affecting horses that were trying to pass other horses, much more so than it had in previous years. So, for a 2-year old just debuting for the first time to make the kind of move that she did, I know kind of a suspect field. It was an off the turf race. You're not getting the absolute best dirt meant horses, but I feel like her trainer in Belmont saw enough from her in that effort to be like, you know what, we'll stick with the dirt. And she certainly has the pedigree for it, being that half sibling to Frank's Rockette, who is running in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint this year as well. In the spinaway, the break was just a disaster. I mean, she's breaking from post 10. She
To say
goes
the
and makes
least.
a left hand turn. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite that bad from a horse that still ends up getting themselves into contention within the race. I mean, she finished fourth, and there is no one that can convince me that with a clean break that she was not winning that race. I mean, just the move that she made to pass so many horses and get herself even a teeny tiny slice of the superfecta after being way out into the middle of the track. When I was talking about her earlier, I said that this is a horse that at least I've seen her overcome something and make a run out of less than ideal circumstances. And that's not something I've seen from a lot of these other shorter priced horses. I know last time she really didn't fire at all in the frisette. I'm going to go ahead and blame the off track. And if I'm wrong about that at 20 to 1, that's okay, versus being wrong about that at maybe 10 to 1 or 3 to 1 or a shorter price on her. But I feel like I'm going to give her one more shot. And while I don't necessarily have such a strong argument for some of these shorter priced horses,
Okay, okay, fair enough. I get your
I
point
made
with
my
American
case.
Rockette. Okay, you made your case, but horses who create their own trouble in big fields are not something I wanna really mess with when she's gonna have some more factors thrown in her face, including a wide post. Just she really has to run better and act better, and I don't know if a big stage like that is where you wanna ask a filly to take as big a step forward as she's gonna need to, and I know that you said that she closed very well. I don't know who she really beat with that close, and I know who was in front of her, even though she made that close. And I'm wondering if she won't turn out to be maybe a really good late running sort of sprinter, maybe not a two-turn sort of horse. It's a free pass to find out if they find out here, and maybe she'll surprise them. But I don't, I don't see this as the glass slipper fit for American Rockette off the last couple of races that she's turned in. Maybe she'll surprise me, you'll get the price worth it, but she is one that I tried to make a case for like you did, and I just couldn't do it, not with what she caused herself and the work that she gives herself to do in a crowded field like that. If she's not all there yet, it's probably not gonna work out this day, but going forward, there's definitely potential and talent with her, just some things to iron out.
Definitely. And I think that's really just like this is one of those horses that is so price dependent, because if there were all of these ifs and maybes and all of this needed improvement for a horse in a race like this, and this horse was a short price, that is not worth the gamble whatsoever. Or if you can at least attach yourself to one of these shorter priced horses and make a significant case for them. With her, I don't necessarily expect her to win, but I can make enough of an argument for her at 20 to 1 to at least do some running. So at least with her, I kind of can make the argument too. Like, if you like a horse like Wonder Wheel or Leave No Trace, which I don't like Leave No Trace at all, you have to at least respect her coming out of a similar effort with all the trouble that she had in there. I know that she didn't finish ahead of much better horses, but similar runs in a race like that where these horses had much better trips. I don't know. I can convince myself of her pretty well.
I guess that's kind of what I did with Grand Love, convincing myself that a horse that's shown speed and has some ifs to resolve. I would just prefer to have a horse that's going to be huge of a price without a lot of impediment in her way. I think that she'll be close throughout, and if she's got it, she's got it. But it looks like she has the talent. It just looks like maybe I would just love for her to have one more start to her rather than just the one race going long. But I know that the talent's there. I know that there's speed. And if you're going to give me the same price on both of them, I guess that's the way that I would lean. But Either way, when I'm making any sort of vertical plays, any kind of horizontal plays, I know that I'm not going to be using horses like Chop Chop. I'm not going to be using chocolate gelatos. And I know that a lot of people are going to go price shopping in this spot, but I might limit it down to the 8 and 9 as far as those sorts of wagers go, and then try to fill in the blanks underneath with some illogicals to me, like American Rockettes and things like that, but it's still, um, outside of the 8 and 9 in the top spot, I really didn't see a whole bunch that I could hone in on and really, really like. I just am very lukewarm on a lot of the rest of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why this is such a good betting race this year, which it really wasn't last year. I get if you try to take a shot against Echo Zulu, but I mean, she was kind of the star coming into this race and more deservedly so. And we don't really have that as much this year. And I think that's why it's more kind of fun and more wide open to hopefully catch a price somewhere in there. With the horse that you mentioned in Grand Love, the Churchill Downs track was just kind of playing weirdly that day of the Pocahontas and the Iroquois, and I actually was there that day. And horses that did really well in those races have come back and not run so well, and horses that did not do so well have come back and run much better. So I don't really know what the read is for me on both of those races going forwards with those horses. But I mean, the winningest trainer in North America is not just throwing her into this race just because.
Yeah, true, and knows what she can and can't handle at this juncture, I'm sure. Not afraid to throw him in, but I don't think he's the kind that throws a whole bunch at the wall and hopes it sticks, so in shopping for a price with a little bit of speed, that'll usually fit the bill for me. And I was really excited to go over the juvenile fillies when I looked at the pre-entries because prior to like a decade ago, it was one of the most formful races in the Breeders' Cup. In fact, I think like the single most formful race. And then in the last 10 years, all over the place. But I, I just didn't see anything. It was the one division where nothing jumped out at me as a horse that I really could single in anything. I mean, I'm going to find some here and there throughout the cards that I really like, but in this race in particular, I thought it would be an interesting challenge, and it is. And I think that if you are a vertical player, that this is going to be a race you might want to spend a little bit of extra time on because you can make cases for some real bombs to hang on for a piece to get a piece because they're not that different from inside out.
And I think the most disappointing result would be if Chocolate Gelato ends up winning. With all the fun of everybody else in this race.
It's a fun
Um,
day to handicap regardless, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about it. And the more you get into it, the more invested you get in trying to find some long shots along the way. And in looking at Friday especially, I kept coming back to this race and kept trying to find creative angles for horses. And I only ended up with the couple, but I really, really do like the other Pletcher in this spot, and I think that she'll prove that she can take the step away from state bred company, restricted company, and was really a shrewd purchase by her new connections.
and it's not like those connections have not hit the limelight before. They've made some pretty good decisions with their horses. So, was
Mhm.
there anyone else in the field that we have not touched on that you feel deserves a mention, or do you feel like we've covered it?
I think that you've covered just about everybody that I'm interested in and a lot that I'm not interested in. And I think that I mean, a lot of the same reasoning is going to apply to some of the closers, the shoplifters, things like that, who I thought had some very fair shots at things and really don't show a sign to me that they're going to take a big step forward in the juvenile fillies. So I think what you could say about one of them, maybe about chocolate gelato, I could say about a lot of them. And it's just going, nope, next. But um yeah, you've got my thoughts on it, and even though they're limited to horses on top, I wouldn't talk you off many underneath. Just make sure that you demand value on the horses that you do key under because you're going to get a lot of similar fillies for much different prices come Friday.
I couldn't agree with you more. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies with me. Where can everybody find you on social media in the horse racing media land? And if anybody wants to hear your handicapping opinions, where should they go?
Wow, the first for everything, I suppose. If you want to check on Twitter, I'm Angela Hermann, my full name, 15. And that's the only social media platform that I'm on. I say this on a lot of podcasts, hoping that I'll add to it, but I don't. If you find me on TikTok, if you find me on Facebook, that's not me. So if you hear any handicapping advice on there, unless it wins, that's not me either. So I will be working those couple of days. I will be at Canterbury. If you are watching this and you want to come out and join us for the Breeders' Cup, come say hello. Uh, you can get after me for a bad pick in the Juvenile Fillies, whatever you want. And look forward to talking with a lot of different people about all of these races, including the Juvenile Fillies. And hopefully, we all
Hopefully. All right. Well, thank you for joining me and good luck this weekend.
good luck to you.